Hey, Steve Zalunardo here with Remax Treviso North Realty. Just want to give you some information. I mentioned yesterday where we're going to run basically down memory lane of where properties were at the top of the market in 2022, and then following the pace 22, 23, 24, 25. What I want to do is I want to present to you what we're seeing on our end, because we have, we talk to clients even for further listings or presentations when we go on listings to clients where the market was, where it is now, why we should be priced at a certain point, and where we see the market going. So I just want to give this a quick layout of what we're looking at. So what we did is we went down and picked a community nearby our office, so Cold Creek Estates, which is in Valor Village. So we picked, the location is exactly the same where all these properties that have sold. The house is exactly the same in the sense of like square footage, features and benefits, and then also lot size, and pretty much it. So these are basically generically the same products in the same community. So how we would do a comparative market analysis. And again, this is not for the faint of heart. If you don't want to see where the value was and where we are today and where we're going, don't watch the rest of this. It's probably not a good idea because it is a little bit overwhelming. Because what we did is we actually used ChatGPT and built a performa based on not information, because it's kind of tricky when you ask it information about the future of the economy. It kind of brings in all these articles and news clippings and everything from banks and from CMHC and a lot of stuff that we don't follow, because in my career in real estate, anytime I followed either like the economists in Canada, the banks, or CMHC or any real estate company, is always the opposite information that was right. It was always wrong. And obviously they get their bias and they want to make sure everything looks good so people keep on doing their thing. So what we did is we prompted ChatGPT with all the articles and information that we're using as investors to kind of put it in, and then what we did is we prompted it also the economic basis, because it was saying that unemployment is 7%. It's more like 12 to 14%. Let's face it, okay. And it didn't take into account regarding the youth unemployment, which is probably around 20%, which we didn't even add that. But a bunch of the stuff where the market is going, where the market is, what's actually happening, and it's kind of interesting because we feel the market's going to fall between 20 and 30 points between now and 2030. Where 2030 we should have a lull period, like sort of like the dust settles in 2030. But it's kind of scary where ChatGPT actually came up with the same numbers that we're thinking about, and we've been broadcasting this the last year and a bit. That's why I'm advising clients first time is sell your primary residence, go rent for a bit, and kind of play out the market. Some are listening, some are not. It is what it is. Again, I hope I'm wrong, and this is not something I want to be stuck in the mud with. And if I'm wrong, I'll take it to the chin, because it's actually better for the economy. I'd rather this be wrong, whatever I'm presenting, than right. To be honest, I have no attachment. But this is why I feel, and this is why we're advising clients to do that: is sell, rent for a bit, kind of play out the market, and then buy back in if you're going to buy back in. But we even feel a lot of people are moving out of country right now. We have the highest migration out of Canada into the United States, which is insane. First time in Canadian history. Before there was said the stats were as high migration out of the 60s in Canada. Now it's actually above that, and a lot of that is coming out of Ontario, to be honest. So let's have a trip down memory lane. This is, again, we removed the sellers' names, which is great, and we're going to just go with these properties here. So between 3 and 3,500 square feet, I think this is like 3,200 and change. 4-bedroom, 4-bath, 41-foot wide lot. This is obviously important, the width, and then the depth is 105, which is standard for these communities. Unfinished basement, double car garage, and they're all basically fit and finish the same. So this was the height of the market, sold for $2,035,000, right? Okay, so let's get to 2023. So same product. And again, this has actually got a better elevation. If you kind of look at it, this is brick and mixed stucco. This is full stucco, which these were always fetching to higher because it got that chateau look to it. A year later, this was listed for $2,130, sold for $2,050,000. Okay, so you kind of get that big drop off there. So if that drop off is literally 12% in 1 year, okay, 12 points in 1 year. Again, same idea, 4-bedroom, 4-bath. Square footage, I think this is 32 and change. Yeah, 3240, unfinished basement. So let's go. So that was 2023. 2024, again, same product as the last. This is actually larger, 5-bed, 4-bath, unfinished basement. Again, the lots are all the same. This guy, obviously, realtors are the best. Look at that. He put these reversed, and he's going to get a paycheck out of this. Isn't that awesome? But it's a 41 wide by 105 deep, listed at $1.8 million, sold for $1.7 million. So if we kind of look at 2024, from the height of 22, that's 28% drop off, okay? And I've been saying this the whole time. We went up 30 and we're going to go down 30. And that's exactly when I keep presenting, you're going to see this as we're going. So this is, does this show us the year here? Oh, 23. What was the last one? 24. Sorry. So 23 was $1,670,000, and then we found this one in 2024, which is at 1.7. So it actually sold more than the property did in 2023. Okay, so 24 we're at 1.7, and then we go into 2025. Same product, similar anyway. Same 5-bedroom, 4-bath, same lot. This has a finished basement, so it's actually got more features and benefits than the last property. And this sold for $1,640,000. So let's bring in the scary stuff. And this is the scary stuff. And this is not for the faint of heart, to be honest. But take a look at this. So this is the journey, okay? So that's what we're looking at. Valor Village, that particular product, 2,350 and 22. If you kind of see the scale down, those are real sales that happen in the community. At 1,640, it's 30%. So remember, I always said this. It's hilarious because the first time I did this, I said we went up 30, we went down 30, okay? So we lost total value, right? We lost total value, okay? And now, this is what we predict now. This is what we're showing clients why we should just sit on the fence. Like, get out of your hard assets, especially investment properties. I get your primary residence. You don't want to get out of it. If you have a low mortgage or it's paid in cash, you're just going to ride it out. That's fine if it's a long-term property. But even clients with investment properties that are looking at $30,000, $40,000 not getting or waiting for that extra $30,000, $40,000 that's never going to come, and being misguided by people around them, maybe other realtors or other people around them saying, oh, it's Canada, it's going to come back, don't worry about it. You got to remember, like, what we're facing is not a normal economic boom bust cycle. This is a whole different layer to look at this. So I don't want to get into too much in depth with that, but just trust me. Trust me with this, that it's a whole different way of looking at Canada, not a typical economic boom bust cycle. There's so many different factors that need to take into consideration why the market's going to come down and the reason why. We can talk about that at another time. But let's look at 2026. What I did is just 25% depreciation in over 5 years. So 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. And we evenly put them through. Evenly divided the 25%. Reality is you should get the biggest drop off probably in 26, 27, and then you're going to have smaller chunks being taken off as you're going down. Because with all the job loss and everything that's going on now, all the uncertainty, and all the mortgages coming up with people that bought in 2022, they're going to be underwater very shortly, where there's no equity left in the property because the house has gone depreciated. If you kind of see that 30% drop off, like right here, if they put 20% down and it's 30% loss in value, you're underwater. So a lot of these properties might be handing in their keys very shortly. We don't know. I don't know the exact facts of it, but I mean, logically we know. But let's look at 26. 26, the same property, 1,560, let's call it. So an additional 5% loss. That's literally $82K, right? So now you're down like $800,000 from the height of the market. And people are always saying, oh, it used to be 2.3, I'm never going to sell it. But you're going to keep riding it down. 27, another 5.25% down. Now you're at 1,476. You got to remember, these houses were sold probably around $800,000 to $900,000 back in, I think they were sold, if I was in civil engineering school, that was probably married maybe 2010, 2009, 2010, around there. That's when they were sold. They were probably going for about $800K, $700,000 to $800,000 for that same house. So just think about that, how far they stretched in such a short amount of time. So 1,394 and 28. Again, this is now you're almost $950,000. It's scary. And now you're down 40% from the height. 29, you're at 1,312. Again, that's another $82K loss, and $1,038,000 under since the top of the market, which equates to 44%. And then by 2030, where we feel this will be the lull period where we kind of go sideways, unless something miraculous happens. But to be honest, there's nothing that's going to be able to put the economy forward. And we still got the threat with AI. We don't know how that's going to affect the employment. This is the problem. We don't know how that's going to affect. So many factors that we need to take into consideration. So this is why we're coming up with these prices. By 2030, this same property that was selling for 2.3 is going to be worth like $1.2 million. Now, if this doesn't scare you, God bless you. But I'd be really freaked out. And again, this is a trend. It's not like I've made up the first four years was basically statistics that we saw, and we've been grading this pretty accurately since the beginning. Again, even in 2017, I timed that market crash as well. So I'm coming with some receipts. Like I've done this in the past, right? So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, let us know. This is why we're talking about. If you're into a hard asset like your own residential property, you still have an opportunity to sell. The last 7 days, we had 950 sales, which is great. Prices, they're not 22 prices. They're 2025 prices. If you see there, that's 30 up, 30 down. So as long as you're in that 30 down, you're still selling right now. Is it a good time to sell? Yes. If I was in the market, even in a primary residence, this is the first time, I just said it a million times, I would be selling the property, cashing out, keeping that cash liquid, and I would just rent. Because people say, well, you're not owning anything. I get it. But if you're let's just say on a house like this with a mortgage and insurance and all that stuff, I don't know, $5,000-$6,000 a month if you got a low mortgage. If you got a higher mortgage, $7,000-$8,000 a month with property tax and insurance and all that. So let's say an even number of $6,000 a month. Okay, if you can get a property for $4,000 a month, let's just say $4,500 a month, and not pay property tax, you're only going to pay a tenant insurance, you don't pay for maintenance, you're at $50,000 a year. Yeah, you're just throwing it in a fire just to have a roof over your head. I get it. It breaks my heart being European, not owning shit. Like I'm renting this office. It freaks me out every time I got to pay this thing monthly. It pisses me off because I want to own. But is it the right time? No. I got to make sure the money's out working. I can't be spending it on an office space so I can have a cool place to do a podcast. Doesn't make sense. This is just a grunt, and then money's got to be out working into real estate. So this is, again, a concept where I'm coming from. That's why if you sold that, you're into like $50,000 a year, and fine. So imagine if you're paying $6,000-$7,000 to have your own property, to have your name on title, but ultimately it's depreciating. We're at this rate here, 5 to 7% per annum, which is $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year specific in this property. People are now looking at the loss, and just that loss it's coming out of your. Just think about $80,000 being subtracted out of your bank account every year. Like that'd freak me right out. That's how you got to look at this. You got to look at it with very deep magnifying glasses and kind of look at this and really let it absorb. Now I'm just going to bring it back in one more time just to kind of give you guys some concept here. This freaks me out because it's a reality, and this is what's currently happening and what's going to happen. So remember that you got to the thriving middle class needs cheap energy. Canada's not on a cheap energy schedule, as you see at your gas pumps. You're at 130 to 150 a liter there. I'm paying 71 cents a liter here in the States. A big difference, guys. Big difference. Why? Because that relates to everything in your life with inflation. High inflation, less money in your bank account, money coming out of your pocket every month. So every purchase you're getting robbed. You're getting skimmed. Like the old casinos where the mobsters used to skim off the top. That's what's currently happening when you're paying high energy costs. If you don't have low energy costs, you're not going to have a thriving middle class. It's like Europe. Europe never has a thriving middle class based on high energy costs. Why? Because it doesn't have any energy. Canada, a lot of energy. Bad government, bad policies. Let's just, simplify things. But take a look at this. That's just again, 82, 82, 82. We kind of evenly address this down the middle. 82K a year coming straight out of your bank accounts, because that's what that is. If you had to refinance your property and get a line of credit, those $82,000 are going to be missing per annum. So just think about that. That's pretty much it with the message. We're going to do one now basically on a TikTok effect, just to kind of, you have short-term memory, not short-term memory, you have short attention span. We're going to do one for those folks right now as well, because I think this is something we need to look at real quick. But that's pretty much it, guys. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.